Alright, this is like the walk, you know? Going to film a video, leave the house, grab the camera, walk down the driveway. I got a bunch of stuff. Today's video, weather kind of stopped what I was filming, so had to go on my list because I take notes on all the suggestions that you guys put in for video ideas, which I appreciate. In today's video, the difference between a freestyle BMX bike and a BMX race bike. Oddly enough, I've had a few, I had like three. People asked aluminum versus carbon, freestyle versus race. So let's go over it. In case you're wondering what was in my hands, we had some new Aftons arrive. Some more black and whites that I've been racing in. These are a new, like a mid-high flat pedal shoe, which I'm actually super pumped about. It's not like a normal cloth material. It's not leather either. It seems pretty durable. Stoked to test those. I don't even think these are out yet. Same with these. These are clip shoes. Yes, people. Not flats. So catch me in Atlanta, Cobb County, rocking these bad boys. And then they came out with these for you weirdos who like to ride road shoes on BMX. I think this is a prototype as well. I don't know if I'm meant to be showing these. If I'm not, Afton, I'm sorry. Just a sneak peek. We got some pink. We got new handlebars that are backwards. That's another video. Race bike. Freestyle bike, what's the difference? As you see behind me, I have my Haro Citizen carbon fiber race bike, and over here I have my Haro SD, which is Dennis Anderson's signature frame, chromoly freestyle bike. I've had the question, what's the difference between carbon, aluminum, what's better, vice versa? I felt I really couldn't do a full video around what's the difference between aluminum and carbon, because it's pretty basic and straightforward. I'll get into that. And then I also had someone ask, what's the difference between a race bike and a freestyle bike? I thought, you know what, both of them together will be a good video. Let's start with aluminum versus carbon fiber, because that was actually pretty easy to go through. However you have your race bike set up, it's probably gonna be pretty much the same whether you have an aluminum frame or a carbon frame that you're attaching to. The reason for carbon fiber frames, we want to save weight and we want stiffness. When you're coming out of that gate, you want to have the stiffest bike. So when you're laying all that force down on that first and second pedal, you don't want a flexy bike. Because if you have a flexy bike, it's like having not enough air pressure in your tire. If you're snapping and you have like 50 or 60 pounds in your tire, that tire is gonna squish, right? If you're squishing, you're losing that force and drive to go forward. That's why I run 100 PSI in my tires, because when I snap, I wanna have everything responding as quick as possible. I run a good Maxxis Torch tire, has a good side groove, and with tracks being asphalt turns nowadays, real open, it's very rare you get to a turn where you're worried about sliding out or anything like that. So I want everything stiff as possible. That's kind of where the sport is going. You want a stiff BMX race bike, and obviously you want it lightweight because you want a light bike to get it out of the gate. You want to have that good fast acceleration. 80-90% of BMX races are won and lost right at the gate. Yes, there is 4 straightaways to get to that finish line, and you want to race all the way to that finish line, and you can always make moves around the track. But if you get out of the gate, it makes that race that much easier. So that's the difference between carbon and aluminum. Carbon is normally lighter and it's normally stiffer. There's a lot of goofy, gimmicky frames out there, so yes, depending on how it's made, it might be a little different, but the idea is to have a lighter and a stiffer frame. And that brings us to a freestyle bike, dirt jumper, whatever you're gonna call it. All BMX freestyle bikes are chromoly, which is steel. Steel has more flex. If you see people back in the day, in the 80s, BMX, 90s, whatever, it was mainly a chromoly bike. Thinner tubing, you gotta have smaller tubing to make up the difference for the weight. 'Cause if you have this tubing as thick as this, that's gonna be a pretty heavy steel frame. Steel is normally smaller tubing to save on weight. It flexes a bit. our titanium or anything like titanium and steel is definitely flexes way more than aluminum and carbon. Steel is obviously not as light as aluminum. With the progression of bikes, just like we have carbon nowadays, back in the day, freestyle bikes and race bikes were just a BMX bike. They're all the same pretty much. And then everything starts changing. People start putting gyros on. You don't need a gyro on a race bike. A gyro is so you can have brakes, but you can also spin the bars without a cable getting wrapped up. If I spin these, I'll get halfway around and my cable's gonna wrap up. Then there's progression of bikes. So they wanna go, okay, how can we make a BMX race bike even lighter? Let's use aluminum. If you looked at a slow-mo video of someone doing a gate on a steel bike out of a gate, you would see the bike really flexes. So maybe you're asking, why doesn't freestyle guys go to aluminum to have a lighter freestyle bike? Race bikes, we wanna have lightness and stiffness, right? Well, on a freestyle bike, we're obviously not worried about getting a good gate start, but we want the bike to ride good. So when the bike has a little bit of flex to it, it actually rides a lot smoother. You can go ride dirt jumps. You don't feel as many bumps. If anyone's ever got off their dirt jump bike and then jumped on a carbon fiber or just rode a carbon fiber bike for the first time, it feels like you feel every little bump. That's because you do. The bike's not flexing at all. So you're going in turns and the bike's just responding. It's not giving in when it hits like a bump or a dip in a turn. That's the idea behind a steel chromoly bike. Chromoly bikes tend to ride a little better. They're a little more forgiving when you ride like steep transitions at a set of trails. If you're ever taking a race bike to a set of trails, it just feels really like jerky. Well, that's because you're feeling every little bump. So when you go and hit a transition of a steep lip, that super stiff bike is just gonna respond to that. Well, a chromoly bike is gonna have a little flex. It's gonna feel a little smoother. It might be a little heavier, but with the development of bikes nowadays, chromoly bikes are so light. This bike isn't even much heavier than my carbon race bike, to be honest. You can have a steel frame and aluminum frame or carbon set up identical. I guarantee you the steel one's gonna ride the track. It might not feel as good out of the gate, but it's gonna ride around, it's just gonna feel a little smoother around the track because of that give. Steel actually bends before it snaps. Aluminum being a stiffer, more brittle material, aluminum will just snap in half before steel will. Steel will have a little bit of give and actually start to bend before it just fully snaps. You hear a lot of people that don't want to go do like a carbon fork, they want to go with a steel fork. It's obviously a nightmare if you break a fork. So a lot of people just feel comfortable on a chromoly fork. It has that little flex to it. It's not gonna take that chance if you case a jump and just shears off. I'm not sure the science behind it. I wanna say carbon, don't quote me, I could be wrong, but I wanna say carbon is actually stronger than aluminum. But I don't know what that... Actually, you guys teach me something. If you're out there, if you're watching this video and you actually know the difference, leave that in the comments because I would actually like to know, because I know if I have a carbon fork, some carbon fork companies do an aluminum steer tube. Aluminum steer tube scares me, but a carbon steer tube doesn't. I don't know why. I don't know if that's because you can do carbon like a thicker inner wall, like the material of their steer tube is actually thicker than an aluminum one. You know, as I sit there and say this, I want to say this avian carbon fork has an aluminum steer tube. I used to run a carbon fork that had a carbon steer tube, and it was so lightweight, and I never had a problem with it. You know, that one actually might be out of my wheelhouse. Maybe you guys can fill me in on that and teach me a little knowledge. You know, I say that about chromoly dirt jumpers. Everybody rides steel BMX bikes. But when it comes to the mountain bike world, like my hardtail, my Haro Thread 2 and my Thread Slope are both aluminum. And I don't know if that's because maybe it's a longer frame, because if you run aluminum frame as a freestyle bike, it's gonna be too stiff. It's probably not gonna ride that good. And to be honest, I don't even think they make any aluminum frames with the geometry of a freestyle bike, because when you go from a race bike, you might have the same top tube length, but normally the rear ends, which is the chainstay, from the middle of the dropout to the middle of the rear axle, is a lot shorter than a race bike. Because race bikes, we're always pulling up, we're manualing, at a high speed, so you don't want to have that back end and be real short and feel like kind of looping out. With a freestyle bike, you're doing tail whips or you're street riding, you're doing slow manuals. Shorter back end allows you to lift up on that front end a little better. Same thing riding dirt jumps. If you're riding a steep lip, if your wheelbase is a little shorter, it's just gonna ride that a little more. You can really ride it and pop up and get some height. Obviously with a race bike, we just want to stay low, push through the lip and go fast from lip to landing. That's when the geometry changes quite a bit when it comes to a freestyle bike to a race bike. Top tubes could be the same. Steer tubes might be a little steeper for certain tricks. Brakes, you have a 990 U brake, which is either under the seat stay right here or above the chain stay. That way it's always out of your way. Your feet never really hit it. If you go to kick a tail whip, if I was on this bike, I would hit my brake arms every time. If you do a big no footer or Superman and you come and you bring your feet back, if your feet come on top of the bike and hit your V brakes on your race bike, or if your brakes were on top, you're taking a chance of breaking those posts. With the U brakes, the brakes are always out of the way and everything is nice and flush. Your legs can catch here, your legs can catch here, and you're never actually having anything that sticks out. Small chain ring, we're not sprinting like we are on a race bike, right? You have a bigger chain ring, it spreads the load between each chain link. So I run this 46. This chain is holding on to more teeth, which is putting less stress across the whole chain. But if I go over to this bike with, I think it's a 25 or a 28, if I go, you will never catch me doing a hard gate start on this bike because I know I have the power to break through a chain. I've done it before. And if you only have half of your sprocket of a 25 or a 28, that's putting a lot more tension on your chain or a lot more stress on your chain, and you're taking more chance of snapping your chain, which no one wants. But with freestyle, you're usually dropping into a roll and you're never coming out of a gate start. So you don't really have to worry about that. You want it nice and small and kind of out of the way. So you don't want to have anything in your way of your feet hitting it, or say you tabletop and your legs really up in the bike. You don't want to have a sprocket digging into your leg or something. Bars on a freestyle bike, if you look at freestyle guys, bars are a little higher. That allows you to stand up more upright. When you're really pulling off a lip, you don't want to really be bent over. Like on a race bike, you're bent over a lot more. And if you go to pull on a lip, yeah, you can pull on it more, but I actually don't know how to put into words how that feels. I just had the ultimate rookie mistake. I finished this video, signed off everything, and as I'm looking at the screen, sleep mode popped up. Memory card filled up. Rookie mistake. If you're doing videos and you make mistakes, it happens. Oh, y'all let me over here filming this dirty hat. If you guys had to guess, what kind of grips do you think I run? Bars, higher bars, you're more upright. You can really pull back off a lip more. If you're on a quarter pipe, you can really pull back into it. Let's look at it like this. This is the lip. If your body is here, and you're really gonna kind of go into that lip then go up, if you're kind of more upright, your bike's gonna ride that lip more and shoot you up. Because in freestyle, we obviously wanna go up. We wanna have air time. We wanna have more time to do tricks. Race bikes, everything is about really having that weight over the front end of your bike. You're always in that attack mode. You just want to go forward. Driving out of the gate, your weight's forward. You're driving those pedals down. You're coming up to a short jump. When you're coming down the supercross hill, you pump that bottom, take a pedal, and really pushing through that lip to stay low. You want to have all your weight on the front end, so as you hit that lip, your immediate reaction is to go down and forward. You know, like just down, straight forward, low and fast, not upright, so it sends you up in the air. A lot of guys run tie spokes race bikes and freestyle bikes. Same tire choice. We want to have light tires on our race bike. We want to have light tires on our freestyle bike. Light tubes in our race bike, light tubes in our freestyle bikes. In freestyle, obviously you're not worried about that acceleration, but if you're doing tail whips or a few bar spins, you want to have a lighter weight. If you have that bigger wheel, for example, my dirt jump bike, if I do a bar spin on my BMX freestyle bike or my dirt jumper, it feels a lot different doing a bar spin on my dirt jumper because that wheel is so much bigger. It might be a light tire and light tube, but it's so far out, more than just being nice and compressed like a 20-inch wheel. Keep that weight light so it feels, everything spins really good. I think I answered those questions. Is that enough knowledge? Do you understand the difference between a BMX race bike and a BMX freestyle bike? That's it. I hate that I couldn't provide you guys with the video that I've been filming all week. I'm very excited to drop that one. Did this help you? Did it help clear the air if you didn't know on what the difference is between a aluminum race bike or a carbon race bike compared to a steel chromoly BMX freestyle bike? I highly recommend you have both, because we can never have too many bikes. You want to have your race bike, you want to have it nice and dialed, but you also want to have a nice fun play bike. I'll push that as long as I'm around. I think everybody should have one. Don't limit yourself just to a BMX track. Get out there, have fun, get you a dirt jumper, even if it's a cheap complete. Get you something that you don't mind going out. These bikes are made to take abuse, at least a lot more abuse than a race bike. Get out there, find a skate park, go have fun, make yourself a dirt jump. If you're a racer, there's a lot more to BMX than just riding the BMX track. Broaden your skills, go out there, learn some tricks, learn some different skills, and until then, I'll see you guys next Friday. If you're not subscribed already, click subscribe for me, click like. Thanks for watching, peace.